going to double down and talk more about some of the overarching talking points, especially around corruption, against the backdrop of a recent revelation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission into a probe alleging the abuse of office and misappropriation of funds by former senior officials of the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, including two of its top former chief executives. That includes the group, the immediate past group executive officer Mele Kyari and Abubakar Eraro. The EFCC's investigation centers on the controversy around the $2.9 billion allocated for refinery rehabilitation projects under their tenures. You can imagine this has also been compounded by recent developments. The Warri refinery that was recently celebrated as coming on stream has reportedly shut down, and the Port Harcourt refinery is operating below 40%. What does this signpost for Nigeria's growing energy challenges, and of course what's happening within that particular sector? Joining us on the program is an energy expert. Engineer Yabagi Sani is joining us virtually for this conversation. He is not necessarily a newcomer when it comes to this conversation, and we're pleased to have him join us on Daybreak this morning. Engineer Yabagi Sani, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. First of all, your initial impression. We heard from the minister that there's going to be an audit. Then we heard from the EFCC. Then we heard from the man at the center of this controversy saying, I'm not in detention. I served knowing fully well that on Judgment Day I will be accounted. I have to account for my actions to not just man, but to God. Your takeaways from what we know so far about this probe and what it means.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Good morning, viewers. I'm sure we all know what the oil and gas sector represents in the equation of our economy as a whole. And so that is a sector that you cannot afford to play politics with or play some kind of ethnic agenda or whatever you want to call it with. And what I've seen happening, if you remember, anytime you call me to comment on petroleum industry and what was happening at that time, I told you that nothing will work in that industry because it is not meant, it's not structured, for it to serve the interests of Nigerians. If you look at it from the top to the bottom, I'm not talking about from the ownership of that organization, and especially NNPCL that we call it now. You know that the ownership of NNPCL is still with the government, represented by Federal Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources Incorporated. You ask yourself, who are the people at the helms of this, that is the head of these two ministries we have just mentioned? It's Wale Edu and the president himself. So which means you have ethnic agenda there, Number two, when you come to the level of the management, top management of that organization, today you have Bayo Ajulari, who the name, you don't need to talk, who is that Bayo Ajulari? He is the chief executive officer of that, industry today, who is a Yoruba man. Bayo Ajulari, I must tell you, is also an interested person as far as the oil and gas sector is concerned in Nigeria. He has private interest. And these private interests cannot just be waved aside, that it doesn't matter. It matters. What am I talking about? Bayo Ajulari led...
Go on, engineer. We can still hear you.
Okay. Bayo Ajulari led the consortium that bought the shares of Shell Petroleum, when they were moving out of the country. He paid, with his consortium, they paid $2.4 billion to acquire the interests of Shell in Nigeria. And this consortium, we need to know who are they really. Now, the president has appointed the same Abdullahi that was executive vice president of the Renaissance Petroleum Group company that bought shares of Shell, that about $2.4 billion worth of shares. Just last year, I think it was in 2024. Last year. So you now bring the same person to come and run the national, that is the state corporation, that is NNPCL. As this, so the question you ask yourself is that where is the accountability? Wouldn't that be a conflict of interest, in that kind of setup? So now you go down to regulatory agencies. You have Komala Pejenga, who is now the head of NUPRC, who is also a Yoruba man. Then you ask yourself, are we Yorubanizing, or is it an ethnic agenda? Must we give all the industry, from the ownership of NPCL to the operations to the regulatory agency, must they be headed by one tribe in this country? That itself is an indictment. So right. If you want this organization to work, I think we need to do a bit more. That is why I said the structure of the organization you have today is not meant to serve the interests of this country.
Okay.
Now the probe going on. You now again, when you look at the personalities being probed, are not in any way protecting them, saying that they shouldn't be probed, but it should go beyond the names that I'm hearing. They said that they are going to probe Melekeri. I've been calling for that long time ago. I said, Mr. President didn't need to waste one day, after he has arrested eventually in CBN, because you are talking about two subsidies that held this country backward economically, and that is the subsidy on Naira, which eventually mismanaged. You now talk about the subsidy on petroleum products, which was mismanaged also by Melekeri. So it should be probed. But the probe should be holistic. Now you are bringing Obakar Yaradua, who was the GMD of that organization, and then to also be probed. It's okay. I have no problems. But why are you, like I read just some few hours ago, that one person who was the vice president of the downstream, where the refineries you say now that you are probing, who was GED, who was in charge of those refineries, is not being probed. In fact, he has been moved up now to become the chief financial officer of the simply because the woman is a Yoruba lady, he is not going to be touched. So where are we going in this country, for God's sake? And like I told you, NNPC, oil and gas sector, cannot be Yorubanized. It cannot. We can't implement ethnic agenda in that sector and expect our economy to move, forward. Mr. President has to step up to the plate and then ask himself this question: am I being sincere? Am I being fair to this country, to the Nigerians, by handling this very, very important sector of the economy in the manner I'm handling today? These are not things that somebody is making up. These are the realities I want Nigerians to look at. Right. So you look at the ownership of that sector, you look at the managerial the management of that sector, you look at the regulatory agencies in that sector, they are all Yorubas. What are we saying? Now, coming to the issue that has been there even before Bola Tinubu came on board, is the issue of the accountability in that sector. Today, those refineries, they say they are probing. Go and check. Since the inception of those refineries in 1975 or so, they never had working meters. Until now, as I'm talking to you, go there. You will not find meters that are working, which will help you to know how much are we making in those refineries. There's nothing like that in those refineries. So where you don't have accountability, how do you expect people not to dip their hands into the finances of that corporation? So it's like a conspiracy.
All right. The question that would be on everyone's mind at this point is, as you've earlier mentioned, there is private, or I should say personal interest in that particular sector. What kind of overhaul should be done rightfully to make sure that it is a fully functioning and a sector that has a proper output for Nigeria?
Well, the good thing, is, these people know what they are doing. I'm talking about beginning from Mr. President himself. He knows exactly what is happening. He has worked in Mobile, as executive, as one of the top management of that. So he knows how that system works, and he has interest as an individual in oil and gas sector. People close to him have interest in that, in the oil and gas sector. So they know what to do. They know how this industry can run efficiently and serve the purpose of Nigeria. And the point I'm making is that it's not only efficiency you're looking for, you're also looking for effectiveness. And effectiveness will mean that you take into consideration the political aspect of this country, because today NNPC is still owned by the government. That's why the board members you see were appointed by just one by the government themselves, and you expect them to serve Nigeria? No. In fact, the structure, like I've described, does not represent Nigeria in the first instance. So they would just serve their own personal interest, private interest, inadvertently. That's what may even happen. Even if they didn't mean to do that, when you have yourselves in a room and all of you are speaking the same language, other than English, and you have the same sentiments, the same interest, what do you think will happen? So this is the point I'm making. Probe can go on. EFCC can do whatever they want to do. I'm not in any way saying they shouldn't probe, because it's sad that our Commonwealth is being managed in the manner it's been managed, under Mr. President and under the president that we had before. But he never probed NNPC, which was sad also. If we had taken interest in serving the interests of this country in the manner that it should be served, especially that sector of the economy, maybe the economy will not be where we are today. Maybe Nigerians will not be suffering in the manner we are suffering today.
Engineer, I don't
so if you say overhaul will mean Mr. President to step back and say, am I fair to myself? Am I fair to what I said to Nigerians when I took over power, that I'm going to run this country in the best interest of this country and then go by the constitution of this country? Constitution says that you must ensure that there is fairness in the equity in distribution of the resources of this country. That is not happening today in NNPC.
Right. Is it ever a lot of people would,
and NNPC, like I said, it's fundamental. It's very important. If you look at all the other industries you have in this country, there is a backward and forward linkages with NNPC, oil and gas sector. There's no sector that performs in this country today without having one thing or the other to do with oil and gas sector. So it's not.
Before was removed, you had a President Muhammadu Buhari in charge, right? And some of the high-ranking officials were from the north, and most people did not make a note of this particular one. You had President Muhammadu Buhari, say, for instance, from the north, Mele Kyari from the northeast. The man in charge of the NMDPRA is still pretty much there, also somebody from the north. So if Nigerians weren't making an issue out of it back then, why making an issue out of what's happening right now? A lot of people will say these are square pegs in square holes, and it doesn't matter which particular region they come from. I just want to get your point on the main issue at hand here, which is the rehabilitation of the refineries. $2.9 billion US dollars approved by the Buhari administration for rehabilitation. We saw the fanfare that accompanied the reopening of the Port Harcourt refinery, which is just showing on the screen right now. Mele Kyari took pride in announcing to Nigerians that it's back on stream now. In Delta State, the Warri refinery was also hugely celebrated. But across all these four major state-owned refineries, $2.9 billion was spent. And that's why EFCC is opening this investigation into it. Did we get value for money having to deal with the current reality that the Warri refinery is being shut down and Port Harcourt is not operating optimally? Do you think there needs to be answers for that? And I think technically we need you to click on the video feature there so we can have the video restored on your Zoom.
Yeah, I just one second.
Do we still have Engineer Yabagi on the line?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I think you have multiple devices.
So you asked.
I believe you have multiple devices on. Perhaps you can just end the Zoom meeting on one end so we can speak using just one channel. right, while Engineer Yabagi is sorting that out, just to give you a premise of what we're discussing is that reported fraud investigation or probe by the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, into the NNPCL dealings under Mele Kyari, who was the immediate past Group Chief Executive Officer. Of course, he has responded, said some of the reporting has been misleading, a lot of misinformation, in fact, saying that he's not in EFCC detention. But of course, he's not denied that an investigation is ongoing, as we're meant to understand, because the Minister of Finance and the Managing Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, has also hinted at an audit. We saw some of the excitement that trailed the reactivation of the Port Harcourt Refinery and how this is supposed to be a game changer, supposed to compete with the likes of the Dangote Refinery. We've also seen the Warri Refinery come on stream, even though it wasn't refining crude oil at any point in time following its reactivation. But at the heart of the conversation is that, did Nigeria get value for money? The $2.9 billion there that was used for turnaround maintenance and rehabilitation of these refineries that are supposed to address our energy crisis and challenges. Did we get value for it? What happened to these funds? As well as all the other sundry issues that have been raised when it comes to the management of the oil and gas sector. I believe we have Engineer Yabagi back. Engineer Yabagi, I don't know if you heard the question. The ethnic commentary there, a lot of people will be quite displeased about it, because at one point in time you had Buhari from the north, Mele Kyari from the north, I believe Malam Farouk in the north with the NMDPRA, and nobody complained about it. So your complaint that there's a urbanization would quite come to a lot of people as a surprise, because nobody complained about it when Buhari pretty much put all these people in charge that have now been replaced. But to the heart of the question, did we get value for money when it comes to rehabilitating these refineries, these moribund refineries, or has it become a cash cow for administration after administration to sink in billions of dollars in an effort to rehabilitate what many would say has not given us a value for money?
Yes, you are right. It's a project that is meant to give the boys, job to do. And if you remember, for 20 years now, it didn't start today. These turnaround maintenance that they normally talk about is a complete fraud. Because even after turnaround maintenance, no refinery, none of them will work up to any optimum capacity at all. And another 1 year again, they will award another contract. They say turnaround in billions of dollars. That was billions actually. That's what has been happening. So that's why I mentioned that Buhari too did not help the case of this country. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. There was never a point when, with all the things happening under Buhari, especially in the oil and gas sector, no one person was called to be probed or something like that, to stop the rot that was happening in that sector of the country. So, but we expect better arrangement under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's why I'm complaining now, because he knows, he has worked in that industry. He has been a Democrat from the beginning of Nigeria, when he was, he ever showed up in the public space. He's a Democrat. So for him to come and do what Buhari can be forgiven, like I always say, from his background, mechanistic background, but Bola Ahmed Tinubu has no reason, to allow this to happen, because with this, there's no way you can have efficiency in that organization, because of the checks and balances we expect will not be there. Number two, why this amount of money that we have spent, if you spend double it, you will not get any value, for your money, is because NNPC is a conundrum of corruption. There are no meters. I don't know how many times one has to mention this. Refineries do not have meters. The trucks carrying, our product from there are for private pockets, because they use hand dipping. It's a manual process. It's only in this country that you run such a big enterprise on a manual basis. So this is what Nigerians must demand from President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to change, that we must have accountability in NNPC. It's not a case of only refineries. Yes, if you look further into even the upstream, now you're talking about the midstream and downstream. That's what they're talking about. We're talking about the refineries and the depots. Those are the midstream and downstream. Even the upstream, where we're making everything for this country to run, which means where we get our foreign exchange, is as bad. In fact, it's worse. When you have people collaborating with our people, the IOCs, most of them run by these white people, collaborating with our nationals in NNPC, to steal our product. And that is still going on. So probe is good. But what I'm saying, we don't have an organization that is run in a way that will serve the interests of the people of this country. And until that change, if that does not change, we cannot expect anything better than what has been happening. So you can probe anybody you want to probe. Still, the fundamentals are wrong, and they are deliberately meant to be wrong. I don't know how many times Naiti will come out with their report and tell you that you are losing billions of dollars simply because they are mismanaging this enterprise that you ask them to go and audit. So it's not as if we don't know what is happening. We know. We even have an agency, like I mentioned, Naiti, which is in collaboration with the international community to audit this industry. And they always come out with their report that you are losing billions. So probe is good, but check and then carry out some remediation, carry out some reforms in that industry, change the management, make sure NNPCL goes to the stock market so that Nigerians can buy, and you can begin to have a board that will be answerable to Nigerians. It's not a board that is answerable to only Bola Ahmed, Tinubu, and Wale Edu. No, that is not how this enterprise will be run. Otherwise, a mockery of saying that you have privatized that organization. You haven't done anything. You're only hook-wicking Nigerians so that you can steal more of our money, and that should stop.
We've been here before where we are having this conversation about what's best for Nigeria going forward. I mean, I guess this is a source of national pride to say that we have refineries. I mean, all these other OPEC member states have state-owned refineries for the better part working optimally. The Obasanjo administration, once upon a time, did attempt to sell or even successfully sold these refineries only for it to be reversed by the Addau administration. Do you think these refineries are more of a liability now on the nation than an asset? And should we reconsider selling them into private hands, or at least some sort of concessions to avert these losses of billions of dollars in turnaround maintenance?
Well, that can only happen if you get it out of the government. Because when Obasanjo wanted to sell it, he was doing that because what you have just said now, he has come to the realization that these are just brains, that will siphon Nigerians' money, which you could use in other demanding areas that will serve the interests of the country much better. But because of the entrenched private interest, that's why they didn't allow Obasanjo to go on. And when President Addau, of blessed memory, came on board, they just hijacked the whole thing and they convinced him that he should not privatize. So these are the things. Look at even the power sector that you talk about. It was going on, and then when you see these civil servants and some of the people in these public organizations, they have regarded this economy as their own private economy. They don't look at it as it belongs to Nigerians. So this is the issue, that anytime any president wants to do anything that will serve the interests of this country, all the civil servants, public servants will come together and start, chunking out some statistics, some PowerPoint presentations that will confuse, the president, and he will not do what will be in the interest of this country. But I expect Bola Ahmed Tinubu to know better, and he knows better, because his people close to him are running enterprises that are similar to NNPC that we are talking about. Abdullahi is was in Shell before. He ran an enterprise that is big, all over the world, and it's not run like this. British government did not say BP or Shell or that should be owned by the British government. No, they privatize it. They give it to Nigerians. You should give it to the nationals. Let us also do the same thing. If we do it today, believe you me, the fortunes of this country will change for the better. Nigerians will begin to now enjoy what God has given to us. The billions they are talking about is just a tip of the iceberg. They have not told the true story yet. Believe you me, they haven't, because an enterprise does not have accountability, that you don't have a recourse, you can't measure, you can't monitor, you can't control. I mean, the money that is being stolen under NNPC management, believe you me, you will not believe it. In fact, they think you are fools, Nigerians. Those working in that industry don't regard themselves, because they have assets all over the place, all over the world. They are sticking rich, and they are rich at your expense. And this is known to Nigerians themselves. It's not me saying it. It is known that, because how could it be? You have even accountant generals that by mistake you got them to say, they say one stole about 200 billion naira. Is what they stole is believe me, what is coming now to Nigerians is just the actual figures, if you care to really investigate to find out what is happening. So yes, we can probe. Yes, we need to reform. Like I've said, we don't need to look further. To have, when you have people who have knowledge of that industry, or as the president, like he is, the president of this country, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I'll keep saying, knows how oil and gas sector in this, like the one we have in this country, should be run. But the way we are running it now, it's not the way that will give Nigerians value for money. That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right. And on that note, we're going to have to anchor the conversation here. As always, Engineer Yabagi, thank you so much for your expert analysis and insight on this one. Many people will say this has become the symbolic, the more you look, the less you see type of conversation, where answers continue to elude the Nigerian public. But thank you so much for shedding some light into this development. I appreciate you for your time.
Thank you for having me.